Good to see everybody. You know, this period of time, most specifically with the ramp up of the pitching, it's critical. And the calendar in college baseball is very unique because you're banking on these guys to do a lot of their work at home. And then when you get back in early January, you do hope that they followed the protocol of what they were asked to do. That's the most critical part of what you get into in our sport this time of year. I have been very impressed with the group of left-handed pitchers that we do have, and some of these guys will be new, but that group, top to bottom, any way you shake it, is very impressive. And we need the right-handed side of this thing to stabilize, and I've seen flashes, things that I really like. I've seen flashes of things that I don't like at all, and that could be said for the left-handed group and the right-handed group. But overall, I do like the depth of what I've seen out of the pitching. I will go back to what I led with, is that part of that ramp up and build up and the expectation keeps those guys on track and healthy. And our sport, you can look at any team in Major League Baseball and college team, we all try to avoid those situations where you have an arm that's down, and it's difficult. Positionally, you do have some returning stabilizing factors in there. I do like the athleticism of the team. Every team is different. Like, you're not going to have two identical teams. The expectations of the result of the season doesn't change, but how you get there will change. It has to change. It changes on the mound with new faces and new pieces and new roles, and it undoubtedly will change positionally with what we are going to put on the field. And I like the athleticism. I don't know in my time that I've had the capabilities in the outfield to range and run like I see here. I've had some really good outfields in my time, but this is very unique. Last year's outfield was very dynamic. It was unique. I think it was more oriented on the offensive side, and the firepower was clearly there. But this is also a unique profile of outfielders when you have a lot of guys that could go play center field, not just here, but I think anywhere. They're pretty talented, and there's some get up and go and run that you don't see, and it's here. It's very competitive. Like, I think our infielders, watching this now from the fall and through the early parts of the preseason, I think you could put guys in different spots and be just fine. And I think when I watch them go through their work, it's a pretty savvy infield group. We have to firm up what we're doing at first base. Really, none of the guys that we're working over there have played significantly at this level or any level at first base. And I do think that's okay, because generally speaking, your athletes are other places coming into a college program. It's not, you can't have 4 people that have only ever played first base on the roster. You can, but you're probably not going to like the overall group as a whole positionally. So we're trying to teach some physical athletic guys how to play that position at a high level. And when you bring Daniel Cantu last year, was very consistent, and he made the position look easy, and it cleaned up a lot of stuff that happened in the infield. It did. So we have to get to the bottom of that, and we will, but that is a little bit of a work in progress. Concerns that I have: can our dynamic left-handed power type bats, Miles Bailey, Bladen Plain, Max Williams, can those guys give you the quality of the at-bat that does produce the extra base hit at a rate that allows you to score in bunches? We have some work to do there. That is a concern. The quality of the at-bat will determine how much of that power plays. And you all sat right here and watched it as last season started to play out. You saw some very advanced approaches and at-bats. Combine that with talent, and you start to put up really good offensive numbers, and that clearly helped. I feel like this team has to be very difficult to score on, and if you're difficult to score on through the caliber of the pitching and the athleticism of the defense, those athletes that are playing good defense, they're going to figure out some way to score. It may not be the way last year's team scored, but that's okay. If you're hard to score on, then it does change maybe what you have to do offensively to push your way through in some of these games. That's how I see it right now, and I do like where we are, and I do like what I see at this point.
Open up to questions. Call for the microphone, please.
Hey Coach, I think this is the first time we've talked to you since the schedule was released. You've got playing 5 teams ranked in preseason top 15. I think 7 teams have made the tournament last year. How difficult will that be to kind of manage that schedule? But also a lot of those series are at home. How great is it for this baseball community to get some of those great series in their home park?
Yeah, the fans are the absolute best. And I thought last year with some of the modifications and maybe what was available from a concession standpoint, and clearly the excitement of the midweek game, and you have the marching Chiefs, and you have all of that going, on top of the fact that the team was pretty dang fun to come watch, quite frankly. So those are all unique parts of what made it great, and I think we're headed in that direction again. The scheduling, you never really feel like you have a clear pathway with your schedule. I don't know the rankings. I don't really look at it. I do know when I look up and down that thing, there's very, very competitive traditional teams, and early on there's some teams that are very, very, very competitive that are coming in here. Tough. The midweek stuff, it doesn't get any more challenging than what we deal with in the middle of the week here. It doesn't. I mean, I've coached all over the place, so there's no wiggle room. And I look to last year, even when you get out of the gates, you're trying to do unique things along the way that keep pushing you. And last year it was, hey, can you be the last undefeated team? So you're constantly trying to, there's things hanging there that you're trying to reach for. And then an expectation of mine and a hope for the program is that we do have the opportunity to have postseason games here. So when you look at that schedule, no matter who's on it, you have to perform if you think you're going to be at home in the postseason. And number one, you have to play well enough to think you're in the discussion for the postseason. So it continues to mount and build as to what you're shooting for. But yeah, the ACC, it's always going to be really, really, really tough. And when you throw Cal and Stanford into the equation, the geography of it, and those teams are good. So there's no breathing room, not from the first series through the midweek stuff all the way to the end. So it's a good, tough schedule, and I think the fans here, clearly they're going to come out and enjoy it, and I hope we can answer and deliver.
I'm sure it's nice to have a guy like Jamie, an established guy at the top of the rotation who you know is probably going to start every weekend for you when available. But outside of that, I guess some real questions with the rest of the rotation, and I got midweek too. I guess how many guys are in that starter conversation? Who are those guys? And I guess what's Cam Leiter's status as preseason gets underway?
Yeah, Cam's got a significant rehab, so there's not even a discussion right now for that one. Jamie has been dynamic and has continued to mature and grow into the art of what he's doing on the mound. I think the changeup will help him in the hopes of adding a pitch that he's going to use a fair amount, allows him to still be consistent with the other two that got him to be in the conversation he's in right now. Joey Vellini has been as consistent as any left-handed arm I've had in a fall preseason setting. He really has. He's a transfer from South Florida. He was banged up a little bit, came through his Tommy John, and now he's back. And it's been fun to watch him navigate. There's 4 pitches in play. It's not maybe the fastball velocity that you see out of Arnold or Mendez or some of the other guys, but the pitch ability has been there. We haven't gotten into lengthy starts in the season yet, but you sure like what you see when you look in the crystal ball with Vellini. Wes Mendez, thoroughbred type horse. I was talking yesterday, it's like that horse that's out in the field that's running around, and you want to get that horse in that stable and get that horse acclimated, and then you run the Derby with that thoroughbred. I feel like that's what Wes is. It is a dynamic, downhill, explosive fastball with some velo. The secondary packages are really good. It's just the command, and can we get that horse, that saddle on it, and manage what we're doing, and Micah has moved him along. I've seen growth from the fall to what we saw last weekend, and these next two will provide more insight as to how that looks. And probably talking 8 or 9 guys that we're still building up. I mean, you got Lauk, Rowan, you got Johnny Abraham, you got Evan Kress, you got Peyton Prescott, you got Jamie Arnold, you got Mendez, you got Bellini. That's where we are. And you want to keep building these guys. And at some point, you know, the hourglass of let's build these guys up has run out, and you're going to go play, and then things change. But we're still 8 or 9 guys. Jacob Marlowe has been effective. That's a name that was here, but you didn't hear it. Like, it's coming. So that's a lot of names, and that's a good thing. And I don't want to diminish the importance of the leverage guys that we have out of the pen. And I just had an interview with Danny Wexelman and Roddy Jones on the season, and you look at reflecting how many innings did we play last year that had no bearing on the season. You can probably count them on your fingers, right? There's not many to just be. Every inning is a leverage inning in college because there's always something that you're playing for, always. So all of those innings are important. The guys that start, that's important. But it might not be more important than the guys that manage the back end of the game. So there is that balance, and I don't ever want to diminish or change the importance of that. Some of the most meaningful innings that you guys covered last year were not the starting innings. It was how you get through this thing out here to put some regional games away. How do you finish games in Omaha? How do you manage that and the bounce back? Those guys are really, really, really important. And there's a group down there that has provided some excitement. And some of that group is going to be guys that actually don't end up starting some of the games. So again, the depth of it is impressive. And then our job will be what seems to suit everybody best when we get into the roles. But I do like what I see starting wise or build up, and then some of the other ones.
On the left at the back.
Coach, when we spoke to Jamie during the fall, he mentioned that being around Team USA kind of showed him that like all these elite guys were just regular down to earth dudes. Have you seen any kind of change out of Jamie? It seems like when you're that Friday night AC, you kind of have some sort of cachet or swagger to you. Have you seen anything different out of Jamie from how he carries himself as a leader?
Not at all, really, and that's a good thing. And when we talk about leadership and captains, it's you be you. Like, our guys will eventually pick their captains, but they're picking them because of them. And they can decide what traits represent what they would like leadership to look like to them or captains. And I think number one with him is he works very hard, and he's diligent, and he's grown, and he's delivered. Like, you have to deliver the results to actually be in a position truly in college athletics of are we really leading? You have to do some of that out there, and he does. I think the knowledge and growth of self helps a lot, and having staffing, especially from Micah and Rob, that manage what he does every day in his training, it's critical. And he's embraced the whole body of work to be an elite arm at this level and beyond. And every pitcher has to do things their way. Like, it has to work for them their way. So you do modify some of the progressions throughout the course of a week post-start. There's things that guys like to do and seems to work. So he's in a really good spot. But there doesn't need to be a change in Jamie Arnold. You know, the change is just how he naturally and organically continues to grow and bloom and figure out his craft and figure out him. And we talk about some of the distractions when you're really good are different than when the team or the individuals are not as good, playing as well or as talented. There's more asked of you from a lot of different layers, from the media layer. This is all good. From the scouting layer, from the visibility, from the TV. There's a lot that goes into things when you're good. And I ask them, when you walk out of this room, we always start in here. When you walk out onto that field, it is absolute lock in and deliver and do your work and task at hand, so you can start to separate those worlds that inevitably come at you when you're starting to perform at a very elite level.
Jackson's looks more physical, and he looks like he's gotten better in almost every single phase of his game. Just how big a strides have you seen him make since last year?
All around. Brad Vanderglass worked so hard with our catchers, so hard. And Jackson caught a lot and got beat up. And we saw his weight as the season went on go down. He's in a really good spot right now. And we talk about quality of at bat. Jackson West's quality of at bat has been pretty good. And he's hanging in there against some tough left-handed arms and holding his own. And the power is starting to come. I think you even saw it like in the Garden Goal game, and you see it out here in the preseason. It's been fun to watch. And then the management of game and the receiving. You know, when you're catching, if you're catching an entire game, you're catching 120 to 150 pitches, and there's 50 or 60 in there that are so critical to what you're doing, and then some of the blocks, critical stuff. So, you know, balancing the offensive enjoyment and the things you can do, and coming back and putting the gear on and going to catch at a high level, it's very demanding. And then running the bases, we've got all the catchers. Like coming into college, very few catchers have ever run the bases because of the rules in high school and their travel ball stuff. So he's becoming a complete player, and you're seeing it. You sat out there and watched it. It's pretty fun.
Hey Coach, what kind of progression have you seen from some of the newcomers, especially the freshmen, from fall ball into now as you guys get closer to first pitch?
Well, you know, the freshmen, this is an interesting era of college athletics because there may not be as many freshmen. So when you look around and you see Noah Sheffield, I've seen growth in him defensively. He got a good sense of what he was doing from an offensive side. I think he was advanced. The pitch recognition, for all that we do, we can see what they look like, we can see what they do. We can't see what they see. So he seems to decode pitches pretty well. It's the hardest thing for us as coaches is to get in there and see what that 88 mile an hour slider actually looks like to the guy standing in. He seems to recognize it. And he's athletic. You know, he's worked at third, he's worked at short, some second. You know, where does he factor in? It's tough to say right now, but he's making an impact. Jace Estes from Arcola from down the road, that joker hangs in there. And, you know, Taylor Walls is out here working out occasionally, and you start saying, all right, is Jace Estes, is he hanging in there? Is this the makings of a Taylor Walls? He's had some really bright spots, especially when we played the outside fall games. The speed of the game for those guys in the infield is unique. It's different than when you're playing high school games. Miles Bailey, very athletic, physical, capable, of a lot. When you look at Cam Smith, and you know, I wasn't here when Tibbs and Ferrer were freshmen, but when you're thrown into that, again, what does it look like when the relievers come in the seventh inning to face you and you're left on left and you haven't seen these guys before? How well can he master those moments? The physicality I've never seen. I've had some really dynamic offensive players. I just haven't had somebody that's the size of Jared Verse running around in practice. I just don't want to get in the way of that. Hunter Carnes, advanced worker, 4.0 student. You know, we had a couple guys close to a 4.0. He was at it, and he's probably down in the cage right now doing something. He's got somebody shooting balls out of the machine. He's hitting off the machine. He's in it, and from day one, you could tell this is a very advanced thinking baseball player who's an athletic catcher. So those are the freshmen that I guess have stood out.
Coach, you look up and down this roster, Lincoln's on it, Childs is on it, Madison County's on it, McCullough Christian's on it. To have so many local guys who know what to expect and know what's expected of Florida State baseball, has that been beneficial to you guys just to go out and have a local player to this roster?
Absolutely. You always want to start here. I think the nucleus of what we do needs to start here, and then you have to branch out. We can't do it all here, and I would like to have as many of the players that have dreamt of being here. I want that. It's a different, it was that way for me. It's all I ever wanted was to be here and play on that field. It's all I wanted. So it adds a different dimension when you do have that and you followed it. So if your recruiting nucleus starts here, it does bring that layer into the locker room and into the facility, which I think is really good. And then we have to expand from here and grow this thing out. And that goes from not only a transfer situation, but a high school situation. We can grab high school players from all over, and you have to be able to do this same thing with the transfers. But your nucleus needs to be right here. And again, that's a reason I let all the local teams play on the field in the fall. That was something I wanted to do. I wanted everybody to get a chance to play on the field, and we get to watch everybody. And you also give the people that have supported the program a chance to come out here and get on the field and play, and you get to watch your son play a game here. And we're going to start our recruiting here, always. And then from there, we have to add and go nationally to get what we need.
You talked about the athleticism of the outfield. Have now made 2 trips to Omaha with different teams as a head coach. Seeing what it is required to kind of play outfield in that park, how much is that kind of part of the strategy? And who are the guys along with Max who, they have some pretty big holes to fill in those corner outfield spots. Who are the guys who stood out there?
Well, you want to be tough to score on. The good teams are tough to score on. And then your offensive side, you have to figure it out. Okay, so part of being tough to score on is, can you grab extra base hits and turn those into outs? That's a great way to be tough to score on, is if you can run things down. And I'm not building anything to look at how the park in Omaha plays. You just, when it's time to go there, you have to try to prepare the guys for what it actually feels like there. And it is big. And there are days out there where the wind's blowing in and you're not hitting the ball out. But that doesn't change the dimensions of the place. There's still a lot of space in those gaps that you have to go get it and run it down. So I think just my natural way of trying to put it together is to have guys that are capable of playing center field, and then you move from there. And in the infield, you want guys that are capable of playing shortstop, and then you kind of disperse from that position. Gage Harrelson, who was at Texas Tech, saw him in the fall, has been a center fielder, can go get it, and likes to play, and is a scrappy, rangy, lanky, left-handed bat that's got a little juice in there. He's got some juice. Chase Williams, switch hitter from Northwest Florida State College. If you come watch practice, at some point he's going to try to climb up over the wall and run it down and crash and jump and climb into the scoreboard net and catch balls that are going out. It's fun to watch. Those guys could all clearly play center field, and Max has got that instinct and the knack and the closing and the security that you love. So again, I had some really rangy outfields at Notre Dame, and that helped us. That park was like Omaha, just big and windy, so it really helped. I think we're on that path, and I do like that. I hope that's something we can continue. Brody DeLamalore, right-handed hitter, has had some really, really good, consistent at-bats, and he's on stride. He's kind of a redshirt freshman, so you didn't hear a lot about that last year, but just watching the at-bats and the progression and how he drives the ball at all fields, it's been fun. And Bladen Plain is not in the center field profile, but he's a big physical guy that has played the outfield and could play first, and he runs around really well. BJ Gibson has joined us, and he's an elite football player. But Coach Norvell and I have talked, and this was part of the recruiting, that when it was time for baseball, he was going to join us and work on baseball. And he's another guy that could run out there and play center field. He just hasn't had the reps in the fall that the guys that were here had. So that's a pretty good group of outfielders. And where the chips fall when we try to move those guys around and position them, that we don't know that yet, but it's fun to watch them.
The 2 Barretts on the mound, Ben, just continues to tick up. Just what you're seeing from his power stuff, and then getting David back on the mound just after a really long road to recovery. Just how good was it to see him back on the mound in live action?
David Barrett has fought the recovery and the rehab and the hand and all the things that kind of snowballed on him after his procedure, and that was tough luck for him, and that stuff happens. watching him go through rehab, you feel for those guys that are out there. You know, I can look out of my office at all hours of the day and you see them, and it starts with playing catch right outside the dugout on the turf with Phil, a trainer, and you know, we're talking about throwing the ball 40 feet, 60 feet. Then you back up, then eventually you get to the mound, and all of a sudden you're starting to see this guy, byproduct of probably what he's dealt with, he's throwing a pretty elite like fastball that actually cuts a little bit, and I think his breaking ball's better. And I told Hector Mejia, like our orthopedic surgeon, it's fantastic. He's great. I said, Doc, DB was out there and you would have loved it. And there's just so much emotion that goes into watching a great kid like that fight through some setbacks to then go out there on that mound and pitch in scrimmages, and that's going to lead into pitching in games. So very happy with him as a person and what he's been able to overcome to put himself in position to pitch again, really. Ben Barrett, that was electric the other day. You know, when you see a guy running 96, 98, power sinkers up there, and the slider that he was throwing, when our guys that have been through this come over to me and the comments they were making of what that looked like, that's fun information to get. So, you know, and how we use him, I don't know. Right now, we just want repeated outings of stuff and bounce back. That's what we weren't getting before. He had some hurdles that he couldn't quite get over. But what I saw out there the other day is rare, and if we can stay on track with the progression and the availability and the health, he's going to help us in any capacity that we want to use him in. It was dynamic.
On the right, far right.
Coach, you were mentioning about BJ Gibson. Can you express a little bit more on what you feel like he brings to in the mix and the rotation, and what's something that really stands out that you saw from him so far?
He's very serious about this, and he's very serious about his work. And he has told me from day one, Coach, I love playing football, and Coach, I love playing baseball. And his at-bats, when you think about what our players have been able to do since the end of August, and the at-bats and the work in the batting cages and the machines, he wasn't able to do that. So as we built him up a little bit and eventually got him into the games to have some live at-bats versus our arms, which are competitive, he hung in there. Like, he hung right in there against some good arms and right-handed breaking balls, and hung in there and took some tough pitches. And he takes some aggressive hacks. I tip my hat to that. It's not hard to walk out there after you haven't done it in a long time and haven't had the reps. He stood in there and battled. And he'll figure the outfield stuff out. Like, clearly, he's got the capabilities to run around and handle playing the outfield. Again, the repetitions and the reads off the bat and the reads off the wall and the cutoffs and relays, that's going to have to come in time. But he's very serious about what he does, and he works. He's a serious worker. And I've watched it for a couple weeks. So, nice to have him out there.
Coach, you've talked about the competitiveness of some of the positions and the starting line in the lineup. How much rotation do you think you'll have in the lineup for the first month of the season? And how much do you kind of want, you know, these are my 9 guys and this is what we're going to go with?
Well, you want to, number one, position the team to be in a spot to win games. Like, we have to do that. And we do have a lot of options. And as much as we want to train and practice and have good competitive scrimmages, there's not a more competitive scrimmage that I've seen in my coaching time than what we're doing out there. Last year was in that bucket. This year is probably even maybe a little deeper with what we're doing positionally. So it's hard to say. Outside of, number one, I'm positioning these guys to help the team win. 1. 2, when I find moments to get the individuals that look like the moment fits and deserve that shot, they're in. They're in. And that can go for the guys on the mound, and it goes for the position guys too. And the deeper you are, the more moves you have, the more catching depth. Haven't had this kind of catching depth in a while. Like, there's some depth there. So when you have moments to pinch run and get somebody in there and rest somebody and do it, the more options you have that are legitimate, capable options, it just keeps everybody fresher and better. So we have it. I do have to position the team to make sure we're in the best spot to come out on top in games. Then, when it's time, I'm going to absolutely push buttons that I feel help the team, and then also help those individuals grow and learn and get involved when it's right.
We have any other questions?